Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/slash Tales from Tech Support. In today's episode, these processors are too good. User desperately needs access to VPN. Boss installed a new timecard system without telling me. Exceeding expectations by delivering features late. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So, let's get started. These processors are too good. Kind of long, apologies if it's too boring. Many years ago, I was service tech for an automation company. We sold complete solutions including all hardware and software for large installations. Most of these were multiple branch situations, connected via leased phone lines, back when the internet wasn't a thing. One of the guys I worked with was from Russia, and one of the smartest people I've ever worked with. His experience in computers involved having to rebuild most systems at a customer's site since the factory just shipped stuff out to make their quotas. No one cared if it worked. So he was an excellent troubleshooter, down to the component level. He was our in-house tech support guru, let's call him Ivan. Some of the items we sold with our systems were computer terminals, which were manufactured by another vendor. And they frankly were not that great. My company was in the process of spinning up our own ability to manufacture a new line of terminals, but two large sales came up before we were ready, so our old vendor was tasked to build an intermediate model, better than the old ones, not as good as our new and improved models would be. So they built around 150 to 200 units. Half were installed for a customer in California and half went to a customer in the eastern US. We started to get reports of erratic behavior from both customers. Basically, the display would get scrambled and the terminal had to be reset, soft reset, but it cleared any work in progress, so the customer had to re-enter what they were doing. We figured out that static electricity was a common cause. A user would walk across some carpet, touch the terminal, and the display would scramble. Sometimes it would happen without anyone touching it at all. We kicked this problem back to the vendor and sent some of problem units to them. They also sent one of their QA techs to the customer's site to see if he could figure it out. We also sent a couple of units to our engineering group at our manufacturing center. So, lots of people were working on the problem, but no one was working very hard. The vendor knew we would not be buying any more terminals from them, so they kind of went through the motions. Our engineering folks had many problems they were working on, and they knew that we would not have any more of this model coming online, so they were not too invested in the problem either. The customer was really unhappy with how long things were dragging on, months, and was complaining to the sales team, who was complaining to my boss, who was the service manager for the Western US. He called Ivan and me in and said he wanted us to solve the problem, forget about everyone else who was working on it. Overtime was authorized for us to work after hours. Ivan knew way more about digital circuits than I did, but I was around as an assistant. That evening we pulled one of the units apart so the logic board was exposed but the unit was powered up. We found we could force the problem by simply touching the microprocessor chip with a metal tool or even a finger, running it along the leads. We could not believe that an entire load of chips was defective, so Ivan was poking around and got the idea that maybe the chip was getting dirty power. We had an oscilloscope handy, and he checked for ripple on the power lead for the chip, and it looked fine. However, Ivan realized the voltage looked wrong. It should be 5 volts. I couldn't tell from scale we were using, so we grab a DVM and check the voltage, and it's about 4.5 volts. Ivan grabbed a catalog we had and looked up the chip. It required 5 volts plus or minus 0.25 volts, so the power was out of spec. But the terminal still worked at 95% of the time. He started checking voltages where the supply connected to the logic board. It was around 4.95 volts. The power supply was in an external brick, which we opened up and found 5.05 volts. I think this was almost 40 years ago. The brick was connected to the terminal by a 6-foot multiple lead cable. I was thinking how terrible this was. I had no idea how we're going to fix it. I'm guessing the vendor is going to have to rebuild all the power supplies, or we are. Ivan just held up a hand and continued reading the catalog and looking into the power supply. He then announces that the 5 volts is supplied by a specific regulator in the power supply, and the company makes a 6-volt regulator in an identical case, and we'll just swap it and see what happens. Next day we went to a local supplier and bought a couple of the 6-volt regulators, rushed back to the office, and swapped out the 5-volt for a 6. The regulator was not even soldered in, it used a socket. We powered the terminal up and started checking voltages. We had at least 5 volts everywhere, and the terminal display was stable now. We had another terminal, so we did the same thing for it and found it was stable also. We wrote up our findings and sent them off to our engineering team. In the meantime, we bought enough 6-volt regulators to upgrade all our customers' units. We told our local tech to just start changing out the regulators on an as-needed basis, and to put a colored sticky dot on each power supply he upgraded. Then we got a whole bunch of stuff from our engineering team. They had created a field change order, complete with components, diagrams, forms, and wanted us to use this instead. We figured their fix would take over an hour per unit to upgrade, ours would take 5 minutes. They had included additional wiring to make the voltage adjustable on a unit-by-unit basis. Ivan and I talked it over with our boss and decided we'd just proceed with our easy fix and hope no one followed up with us. Ivan pointed out that the real problem was the chips were too good. If they had really required the specified voltage, the problem would have been discovered by the manufacturer and solved before the terminals left the factory. Of course he was joking, but it was kind of true. Some weeks later I was at a party where one of the engineers that worked for terminal manufacturer happened to be. He and I knew each other pretty well, and I knew he had been one of the team that designed the problem terminal. I was describing what we had found and how we had fixed it, and he kind leaned back in his seat and rolled his eyes. I asked him what the problem was and he told me that the original design called for the power supply to be internal to the terminal, so there would not be a 6-foot power lead. So maybe, everything would have been okay if they hadn't switched to the external brick, which was done since they wanted to use a slimmer case for the terminal. At the end of the day the customer was happy, the sales team was happy, and we were happy. And I got lesson in perfect being the enemy of good enough. User desperately needs access to VPN. A couple weeks ago my inbox notification went off, and I dutifully checked my email. Someone had sent an email to all IT administrators in my company. This person's email went roughly like this: I have been emailing the help desk for 2 weeks now that I need access to the VPN, and no one has helped me. Can you please help? The person's boss was also CC'd in this email. My team's notification suddenly goes off, and it is the CC'd boss asking me to please call her as her employee needs VPN assistance, and it is very important that this employee has access as soon as possible. I am not the help desk tech. I am the system's admin. I decide to ignore the boss for now, and I log into the help desk to see what is going on. I do a search for the user, no open tickets. I refine the search for any tickets ever from this user, no tickets. None open, none closed, none pending. Nothing. This user has never emailed the help desk. I still want to help, and I know the help desk tech is a busy person, so I email the user and CC the boss. My email says roughly this: hey user. I checked the ticket system and I didn't see any tickets, so I want to make sure you are emailing helpdesk@company.com, mail to helpdesk@company.com. Regardless, let me help you get set up. So we are in the process of switching to a new VPN system. I've created an MFA account for you, and you should have an email from the MFA system in your inbox now. Please follow the steps it prompts to complete step 1 of the new VPN. You'll need to download the Cisco client and configure that as well. We don't have instructions written for that yet, so please call me at 555-1122 or reply to this email, and I can schedule a meeting with you, and I'll be glad to walk you through the process of completing the setup. Warmest regards. The rest of the day goes by. No email, no phone call from the user. I checked in the admin section of the MFA software and saw that the user had completed the setup and had configured a phone number. Alright, great. They've completed step 1. Now they just need to call me, and I can get them the Cisco VPN software, provide them the URL, and help them get into the VPN. They just need to contact me with an ideal time for them. 1 week later, I get an automated email alert that the user has locked themselves out of the MFA for too many bad authentications. Another week has gone by and I still have not gotten a call or an email from the user. They still have not emailed the help desk at all. I check up on it every couple days. Maybe someday they will finish reading my email and follow my directions. Maybe not. But I'm not chasing them down. I'm curious to see how long it will take. In the meantime, they still do not have access to the VPN. I wonder how they are doing their job. The user's boss has not contacted me again either. The only other people in the IT admin's email group are the help desk guy and my boss. I asked them both if they've been contacted by the user, and both have said no, they saw my email, and they were letting me handle it. I told them I haven't heard back from the user, and they just shrugged and said, well, he's been given instructions. Let's wait and see. We are still waiting. Boss installed a new timecard system without telling me. This is my second post here, and again, I'm not tech support, but I was that guy who had to handle everything tech related before we bothered to call and pay for our actual tech support vendor, who was an old friend of the owner, and while his service was top-notch, we were his smallest client and his working for us was a personal favor, so we tried not to bother him. Anyway, I was also the office manager, and the owner/boss blindly bought some new software to put on everybody's computer to make it easier for our 10 employees to log in their start and stop times for the day. Evidently, using a simple Excel sheet wasn't easy enough that he had to spend about $1,000 on this program for every computer. Ends up he didn't run it by me or by our tech support guy before purchasing this software. I expressed my concerns, well, mostly about how this wasn't really needed with such a small office, but evidently the owner was concerned that his employees might be fudging their time cards, and this was the magic fix. Again, I thought it was a bit of overkill for such a small office. These programs ran on individual computers and not on our server, which got me thinking. I logged into my computer, looked at the time clock and clocked in using the new software. Then I just changed my computer's clock time and sure enough, I could clock out showing I had worked 8 hours. A few minutes later and I already had my 40 hours done for the week and I hadn't even had my morning coffee. I printed off my time card and handed it to the boss and told him I'd see him next week. Of course I didn't actually leave, but I did manage to get him to have our tech support remove the software and get a refund. Exceeding expectations by delivering features late. Another software dev here. Our support people got a request from a business we work with to add a specific feature. It wasn't a simple request. Product owner, no pressure final device, but we need to give them an estimate. When do you think it'll be done? Me, about 2 months. Time comes and goes. Feature gets built. It's annoying to test, and I made bugs. Feature gets fixed. It's still annoying to test, but there are fewer bugs. Do more fixing. After roughly 2.5 months, we deliver the feature. It's a couple weeks late, but I work for a chill company, and the feature request was from a chill client. I figured they'd care more that it works correctly than that it arrives on time. Boss person, hey final device, I've been meaning to say thank you. The client is thrilled that you shipped the feature so quickly. Me, awesome, glad they're happy. We missed our estimate though, I'm surprised they thought that was fast. Boss person, missed? I'm pretty sure we told them 6 months. Apparently when I told product owner it would take 2 months, she padded it and promised the feature in 3 months. This message was passed to project manager, who padded the estimate and promised the feature in 4 months. This message was passed to business relations manager, who padded the estimate and promised the client that we'd deliver in 6 months. At each stage they assumed that whatever estimate they received was probably optimistic. To be fair, I missed my original estimate and should be padded just in case. It's just funny because it's the exact opposite of the usual horror story. Most companies use say 6 months and each manager whittles the number down a bit in hopes that it makes them look good.